The French Revolution. You're probably picturing barricades, right? Starving peasants. The masses overthrowing the king to build a glorious democracy. Well, forget all of that. That is the fairy tale we've all been spoon-fed, and it's completely wrong. Let's just totally shatter everything you thought you knew about how the modern world was actually built.
A revolution for the people, by the people? Let's check the historical receipts, shall we? Back in 1789, the king actually asked the public to write down their complaints. Now, you'd assume the starving masses were out there begging for voting rights in public schools, but the actual data, it tells a shockingly different story.
Okay, brace yourself for this cold hard number, 24%. That is literally it. Out of all the commoners writing pre-revolution grievance letters, a measly 24% even bothered to mention national education. The vast, overwhelming majority of the public, they didn't care about public schools at all.
And right here is the real historical divide. On one side, the everyday masses were just desperate for bread, lower taxes, and basic daily survival. Totally fair. The old-school nobles, they just wanted to fiercely protect their inherited wealth. But on the other side, there was this tiny, hidden group, an intellectual knowledge elite. They were the ones demanding national education. They demanded equal voting. They literally wanted to tear down and redesign society from scratch.
So, tracking this hidden line. How on earth do you find a phantom elite hiding in 1789? Well, you track their shopping history. The researchers behind this data did something absolutely brilliant. They hunted down the 1770s delivery receipts for a massive, highly progressive book called the Encyclopedia. This thing was radical, it was super controversial, and man, it was ridiculously expensive. By mapping out exactly who bought this massive book, they could pinpoint exactly where these enlightened elites were hiding all across France.
Now look at the trend on this chart right here. The further right you go, meaning the more of these elite book buyers lived in a specific city, the louder the massive demand for national education becomes. You can see the line just spike. The general public wasn't driving the demand for schools. No way. The hidden elites were pulling the strings.
Let's break this down even further. Look at the raw data. The general nobility and the everyday commoners barely cared about schools. We're talking just 20 and 24%. It was actually the progressive knowledge elites operating secretly inside these groups driving the agenda. They were the actual hidden engine of modernization.
All right, peeling back the data. You might think progress just happened because some cities were richer, or maybe because more people there already knew how to read, right? Absolutely wrong. The data aggressively filters out all those distractions. It proves that just having money had zero correlation with wanting a modern democracy. Owning lots of land, zero correlation. Even basic literacy didn't trigger the demand for progress. Talk about a massive slap in the face to our traditional historical assumptions.
So, how did the modern world actually get built? Well, here is the brutal, step-by-step logic. Step 1. Local elites get highly radicalized by reading progressive books. Step 2. The revolution kicks off, central royal power completely collapses, and boom, you've got a huge power vacuum. Step 3. These local elites step up and use their own private wealth to build local schools. Step 4. The modern state is officially born.
Which leads us directly into the modernization rush. You always have to follow the money. When the central government completely stepped back in the 1830s and 40s, someone still had to pay for education. And these elites, they didn't just talk a big game, they opened their own wallets. They literally poured their own local wealth into funding public schools. They bought the very foundation of modern education.
And guess what? It absolutely worked. Here is the ironclad proof. Check out this scatterplot from 1876. That's almost a full century after those original book subscriptions. The regions that had those elite subscribers, they are the exact same places with drastically higher school attendance 100 years later. This blueprint survived for generations.
These schools literally engineered modern society as we know it. Just look at the long-term ripple effects here. Explosive growth in worker insurance, a massive standardization of the French language, but most importantly, these schools bred progressive voters. The elite-heavy regions saw massive surges in votes for progressive political parties. They didn't just build schools, they basically programmed the future of the nation.
But we do need to talk about historical limits and echoes. This specific data absolutely drops a bomb on traditional economics. Famous economists have argued for years that top-down national institutions drive progress. This data says, nope, incomplete. Other experts argue that simply getting rich naturally leads to democracy. This data says, totally debunked. The true catalyst for progress? Local, hyper-motivated intellectual elites pulling the levers from the shadows.
Okay, time for a reality check though, because we have to admit the fatal flaw in all this. Look at these data limitations. By only tracking written letters and super expensive book subscriptions, this study completely silences the absolute lowest classes. It totally excludes the illiterate peasants. It relies heavily on survivorship bias. Basically, we are only hearing the history of those who were privileged enough to actually write it down.
Which leads us with a deeply, deeply uncomfortable question to wrap this all up. History proves the starving masses did not design the modern world. A tiny, enlightened minority did. So if progress is actually orchestrated by a hidden few, who exactly are the hidden elites writing the code for our society right now?